All right, so let's talk about trading Roku in this particular video lesson and go into some details. So trading Roku is a very particular name to trade. So it's a great stock to trade when it works well. It's tough when it doesn't. The reason I put it on the list, if we go back to our stock list, is this, like Google, is one of those particular stocks that has the ability that when it works to see 200-300% gains on the options, whether it's call side or put side. And when this sets up properly, these are the situations where you might catch like $1,000 or $2,000 trade and it'll boost your account. So this is why it's on the list. If we're going to go through the list again, some of these names are going to have their own videos. This is one of those particular ones. We're going to go into some detail to kind of discuss it. So like Google, like I said, it's good for triples and home runs. And there's some key characteristics I'm going to go through with this to show you that things I've used to trade this particular stock. Now, this stock and I have a love-hate relationship. I've done really, really well on it, but it's also caught me for $10,000, $12,000 losses here and there. It's really good to short, and I'll talk about it as we progress, but it's also really good for the long side, and I'm going to give you the personalities and kind of insights to this. So like Google, the options are expensive, right? They're costly. I'm going to go through and show you that. With this particular name, you can still use one or two contract trades, and you're going to try to allow these options to explode. This is not a stock where like Facebook or SPY or QQQ options, where you're just looking for these nice little lunch money singles and double trades. This is something where you put a trade on and you're looking for this explosive move on the option, where at a minimum you're looking for like 100%. Okay, so I'll show you and discuss these and talk about it. So number 3, you've got to go out of the money. And I'm going to show you why as we go on this particular name, because the options are expensive. But on the flip side, how this stock moves, you have the ability to use out of the money. And then finally, the spreads are extremely wide. I'm just going to tell you that now and show you. When you get out of this move, I'm going to show you a technique I use to exit on this trade, because just like getting into it on Google, you got to be really, really, really careful on how you exit. So let me go over to Yahoo Finance. I want to pull some data and stats, and I want to explain to you a few tools I use when I trade this stock. All right, so what you're going to notice first and foremost is I want you to look at the volume. So the volume is about 3 million shares a day. If you go to like a stock, like let's say Facebook or Apple, these stocks are so wide, 17 million shares a day. If you look at Apple, let's pull that up. The average is 74 million shares a day. If you go and look at like Tesla, let's pull that up. I know it's on our list, but it's 20 million shares a day. If you look at Freeport-McMoRan, which is on our list, right, it's 19 million shares a day. This particular stock, Roku, okay, because it's so expensive, you're not going to see a lot of day traders trade this. Now, you maybe heard mentioned, so back like 2013, 14, 15, and 16, we used to trade Priceline. This has a lot of personality traits like Priceline used to have. Number one, you're not going to get day traders trading this. Number two, it's not a super popular stock. You don't see the media really talking about Roku. It's not tech really. I mean, it is tech, but it's not like, Tesla or Apple or Facebook or Nvidia. It's not really a limelight stock, which is good and bad. It's good because nobody really watches the options chain too much. Okay, if you ever look at the options chain on Apple or especially Tesla, especially that stock, or SPY, there's always this massive volume. This stock, you don't see a lot of overcrowding in it. Because of the overcrowding, there's negatives and positives, which I'm going to go through. So when this stock trades, if you look at the average volume on this, okay, it's real similar to Priceline. I never look at volume when I trade stocks or large beta or high beta stocks. In fact, the beta on this is 1.77. So it's a high beta name, but I never look at volume. Now, why is that? Because a lot of the stocks like ETFs or the mutual funds, when they're trading these names, they're the ones that are moving the names higher and lower. It's not, like Tesla has like a big following. Apple has a big following of investors. This isn't a stock where people like believe in it long term, or like there's like a kind of a quote unquote cult following, in my experience. So what happens is whenever you see large volume come through, there's a move happening. As I record this video, it's 2 p.m. Eastern. It's 2 p.m. Eastern, and it hasn't even traded half of the average volume that it's traded. One of the tools I use, and this is something you need to use as you trade this, let's say, for example, I come in by 10 a.m. Eastern. Now we're into the market open. If I see this volumes at this point are 50% of the average volume by 10 a.m., I know for sure the likelihood of a move on this stock, higher or lower, is coming. This is the easiest indicator to use on this particular name. It's one of the same exact indicators we used when we traded Priceline. Because if there's institutional moves in it, if they're accumulating or they're selling shares, you're going to see it in the volume. And typically the morning session is where I'm looking for these moves. So I'm always looking at this particular name to see what the volume does to make those decisions when I'm trading it. So that being said, let's go to actually the price charts. I'm going to pull up a few things here. We're actually going to go through. And I'm going to talk about some of the options first. So when you trade this name, I mean, there's no secret to this. The options are expensive, okay? You're not going to see the same type of volume flow that you see at Apple or Tesla. I mean, look, if you look at the open interest here in December, it's not a lot on either side. And these options are pretty expensive, right? These are $2,000-$3,000 options. So that also deters a lot of what I would consider like retail traders who are gamblers. If you look at Tesla's option chain, Apple, in my experience, it's really filled with a lot of people who just don't know what they're doing. They're just buying calls and puts without any analysis. And you can see that in the volume. This stock, because it's not widely, talked about or popular, you're not going to see that. So when we look at this options chain, even 2 weeks out at this current time, these are still pretty pricey options. Okay. So when we look at this, we can afford to go out of the money on these particular options. Okay. Because trading at the money on these, unless you're at the $25,000 account level, it's going to be tough for you to fit in the trade. Now, again, if you have a $10,000 account, buying the $1,000 option as your max risk of one contract will work. So these options are going to be extremely expensive. Number two on this, when you exit these trades, these spreads tend to get really wide. I'm going to tell you what I do whenever I want to get out of a move on this particular stock. When I trade Facebook, Apple, QQQ, SPY, I can pretty much get an exit and not have to worry about it. This stock is so lightly traded. I never argue when I'm out of a position. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Let's say, for example, I had the 325 calls, and I'm just going to pull them up here, and I'll explain to you what I mean by I never argue with the market. Let's say that, I bought these this morning at 10, and this bounces a little bit. And I'll talk about this in a second. Let's say it bounces to 15, but I really want 18. I'm not going to argue with the market over a $300 difference because this stock, it can change course so quickly intraday and the options will fluctuate really quickly. So when I exit this option position, I'd say about 75 to 80% of the time, I'll mark it out of the trade. I don't use a limit order to exit. I literally just mark it out, take what I can get, and I move on. There are situations, so going back why I have the love-hate relationship on this stock, where I've marketed it out and it presses more and it keeps going. My advice to you as you trade this, from my experiences, don't fight with this stock too much. Kind of take what it gives you and kind of move on. And again, this isn't going to be a stock in the stock list that you're going to have setups on every day. This probably comes once every 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 3 times a month, more like 2 times a month. You get a really quality move. So this isn't a stock you're going to go to the market every day and constantly pull out change. This is something where you're going to wait and wait and wait. And I'll talk about this actual current setup I'm waiting on, where you wait and wait and wait, and you look for this pounce and this move where the stock's going to move 20 or 30 or 40 points in 2 days, and you're going to double or triple on these options. Okay, so that's one of the points I want to make to you as you're going through this as far as exiting. So let's actually just look at it from a different perspective. I want to just talk about the actual stock real quickly and explain a few things on it. So obviously this is a high beta name, so it's widely traded. But more than that, this thing, the personality of how it trades is incredible, okay? As long as this thing stays above 200, and again, we could remove this next year. Stocks come and go from this list. As long as it stays above 200 and the volatility is still there, we'll be able to trade this name, okay? So I like this because when it goes too far too fast, the sell-offs are enormous, okay? You get these huge sell-off moves. Same thing with accumulation. This stock is not something where, look, it'll do a lot of sitting, but once it gets going, this thing moves, okay? So if you look at these moves back here, the drops, this thing will move really quickly once you get it to flow. Okay, so again, It's something I'm extremely picky with. I don't trade it all the time. I really try to sit back and wait for a prime setup, which we'll talk about as you go through this course, and I'll give you like an insight to setup now on this. But I really try to wait for a prime setup, and then I fire off with 1 or 2 contracts on this. Okay, so let me kind of put it all together and talk about literally a current idea that I'm waiting on. It hasn't triggered yet, and you'll learn as you go in the course some basic technical concepts. So one of the trades I like is just a simple pullback into 61/8. Okay. So if you recall when I pulled up the Yahoo Finance piece, okay, and if we even look at the volume here this morning, this is already basically 2 p.m. Eastern. There's nobody trading this. That's why I know today there's no move coming on this. So I ignore it. Every morning, I glance at this to see if I'm in an area of technical where I think the stock can move, I glance at the volume on a daily basis, okay? Well, this morning there's no volume on it. There's nothing here. But because I'm in this, what I would consider a potential buy zone on this stock, right? I love this trade out of these zones. I want to pay attention to it. You had a good move out of this zone here Monday and it failed. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something real quickly on this. But if I see this tomorrow or in 2 weeks, set something up out of this buy zone, I come in the morning and I watch. And I look for these spurts where it moves 20 or 30 or 40 points in a matter of 1 to 2 days. And the options typically explode. But I know today, because I checked the volume indicator, that this isn't probably likely. And again, you'll never hear me in whether you're in the active trader membership, whether you're in, private coaching, I really don't look at volume. There's on select names I do, but I don't look at it. This is the best indicator for me personally that I found when you have a high beta stock, is to look at the volume. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to mention that there. One thing I want to go over and show you side by side on this is, let's take a current week option that actually expires on this, and let's look at let's just look at the 315s. And I want to just show you something so that you can see. And again, I was trying to live record some of this stuff as I created this course, but some of these moves, I got to remember to record and put it in the course. It's hard to do that and to be cognizant of, hey, I got to record it and trade as well. So this was Monday. Okay, these are the 315 strikes in this stock. So this was a zone where this moved on basically in 1 day from 315 to 330. And it is only a $15 move. Okay, but again, because these options aren't crowded, you're not going to go to the option chain and see 100,000 calls one day. Because they're not crowded, the way these options move, the personality is pretty ridiculous. Okay, so on Monday alone, these things went from about $8 low to about $20. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. When you can trade this name, you get these type of moves. But on the flip side, going back to the exiting, okay, this is what I'm talking about as far as exits go. Okay, a lot of you have traded before. You see gaps, you're like, well, I'm going to let it go exactly to the gap. Do not with this stock. And again, I say this because I've been there. Do not with this stock get overly greedy. You've got to take what it gives you, because it does things like this, right? Where it just dies out in these options. I've literally had it happen a few times. I had to learn the hard way, and it's just a mistake. So you got to be very, very just grateful to what it gives you and use market orders to exit. Okay, so yeah, that's an insight to this particular name. Again, when you're trading it, you can afford to go OTM on these. Again, not this one because it's too early, but as next week goes, I'll watch these ones. You can afford to go OTM because of the cost in them. Okay, the options are still going to move significantly when you go OTM. Just be very careful, again, not going out too far. Try to be some kind of context to where the stock could trade to. So that being said, let's do a recap of this. Let's go back to the slides here briefly. So again, just to recap on this name here, give me 1 second. Let me do that. So the spreads are going to be wide. Remember this when you exit on the trade. Market orders work. Okay, you don't got to be the top tick and bottom tick on this. Market orders work. Number 2, 1 or 2 contract trades work extremely well for this. Again, the key thing with this is the volume. Okay, I just showed you it's extremely light on this stock. Even without technical analysis, if you can just look at a price chart and you see before 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Eastern, the volume is half of what the average is, or if it's above that, there's going to be a move. You better jump on board as quick as you can. So yeah, that's a recap on this particular name. I wish you the best of luck trading it. It's been good to me. It's been bad to me. I love trading it. Share your experiences as you trade this. Take a lot of notes. Again, keep in mind this doesn't set up every day. You got to be very selective when you trade this stock. But when it works, you're going to find out it works extremely well and you'll enjoy it.